Presidential Election Petition Tribunal grants Atiku Abubakar access to inspect electoral materials used by INEC. Court disqualifies APC candidate from Taraba governorship election. In international news, U.S. senators say Saudi Crown Prince is going full gangster. And in sports, Nigeria to host this year's Rugby Africa Silver Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal has given a nod to the request of the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, and the PDP to inspect and obtain certified true copies of election materials used in the conduct of last presidential elections. But a three-man panel led by Justice Abdul Aboki rejected Atiku's request to scan and do a forensic examination of the electoral documents. Justice Aboki says the panel decision is anchored on provisions of Section 151 of the Electoral Act. The court also refused to order the electoral body to permit forensic experts of applicants to examine some forms and documents. The Federal High Court in Jalingo has disqualified from Saturday's poll Alhaji Sani Dalaji, APC governorship candidate in Taraba State. Justice Stephen Palm wrote that there are discrepancies in Dalaji's age declaration. The court ruled that the information contained in Dalaji's affidavit that he was born on February the 14th, 1968 was contrary to the date of birth in his wife's certificate. The court has also ordered INEC and the All Progressives Congress not to recognize, accept or treat Dalaji as APC candidate for the election. The People's Democratic Party candidate for the National Assembly election in Shomolu Federal Constituency in Lagos, Oluwaseyi Olowu, has asked INEC not to hold rerun elections in the constituency during the governorship and House of Assembly elections scheduled for Saturday. Olowu described the presidential and National Assembly elections held in Shomolu constituency as a slap on the people of the constituency and a mockery of democracy. The Independent National Electoral Commission says it would conduct House of Representatives supplementary elections in 6 federal constituencies during Saturday's governorship and state legislative elections. INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner in Lagos, Sam Olumekun, says the supplementary elections will be held in the 6 federal constituency elections where presidential and National Assembly election results were inconclusive because of political thuggery, snatching and disruption of ballot papers and boxes.
The Commission decided to hold supplementary elections in the affected federal constituencies. Such elections will be held alongside the governorship and state House of Assembly elections the same time and day. Ballot papers for the federal constituency elections will be made available for voters in the affected polling units for simultaneous voting.
And still on election matters, Presidential National Assembly Elections Petition Tribunal in Lokoja, Kogi State has been relocated to Federal Capital Territory. Tribunal Secretary Aisha Mohid says the tribunal was yet to commence sitting or draw out any timetable to carry out its duties before relocation to Abuja. Mohid did not give reasons for the relocation. With President Buhari's victory at the just concluded presidential elections, Labour leaders have been reeling out their expectations from him as he begins a second term. Labour leaders say President Buhari must urgently see to a better economy and raise the standards of living of the citizens, especially workers and ordinary Nigerians. General Secretary of Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan Okugbawa Lumumba, has pleaded with the president to promote good governance that would make Nigeria a better country. Deputy General Secretary of the National Union of Textile, Garment and Tailoring Workers, Ismail Bello, says the textile sector needs policies that would revive it and create more jobs. And here's an update on the Malabo story we have been following on ANN News for a while. A retired Swiss oil executive who was previously said he had knowledge of illicit dealings over a Nigerian oil block involving Royal Dutch Shell and Italy ENI has made an about-face. Richard Grenier Defer has reversed the statement by saying he has never had contact with Shell and never had relations with people from ENI in his entire career. The trial centers on oil prospecting license 245, which has become one of the largest scandals over alleged corruption in the industry. Italian prosecutors are saying when Shell and ENI paid more than $1 billion to settle legal disputes over the block and acquired rights to develop it, much of that payment went into bribes and kickbacks. And Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Makanti Baru, has warned the management and staff of the oil firm to desist from actions that go against the provisions of the Public Procurement Act in the award of contracts. Baru says severe penalties will be meted to those who contravene the stipulations in the Procurement Act. Baru gave the warning at a supply chain management workshop for NNPC procurement managers in Abuja. He restated the corporation's commitment to transparency in every aspect of its operations. Coming up, African stories. Explosion hits Somalia's National Theatre. And later, international news. U.S. senators assail Saudi Crown Prince. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Looking for some Disney magic but don't know where to find it? We've got a magical solution just for you. Simply go to DisneyNigeria.mobi and get an exciting selection of games, short videos, wallpapers, shareables, and more. Explore a whole new world of Disney on your mobile, tablet, or PC. For just 200 Naira monthly, you get to enjoy the fun to infinity and beyond. SMS Disney to 11006 to begin. Terms and conditions apply. This service is only available to MTN customers.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to stories from across Africa. As South Africa moves closer to national elections, political parties are vying for voters' support in the hope of winning seats in the National Assembly. A recent poll by South African Institute of Race Relations shows while there are a large number of new political parties contesting the elections, three key parties actually dominate: the ruling African National Congress and two major opposition parties, Democratic Alliance and Economic Freedom Fighters. These three parties will likely account for at least 87% of the vote.
On those numbers, the ANC increases slightly to 55%, the DA increases to 24%, so it would seem that a lower turnout seems to benefit the DA slightly more than the ANC.
The country's Electoral Commission has its hands full trying to verify more than 1 million voters' residential addresses. Registered voters are keen to make their mark.
I'm going to vote because I feel that every little vote counts and it makes a difference, and that's my way of saying I have the right to have an opinion on our country, economy-wise, with any relation.
South Africa general elections are expected to hold in May to elect a new National Assembly and new provincial legislatures. Egyptian security forces say 7 suspected militants have been killed in 2 operations in Giza across the Nile from central Cairo. A police officer was reported wounded. Interior Ministry said on Thursday 3 of the militants had disguised as electricity workers to plant explosives but were killed in an exchange of fire after the truck was intercepted. 4 more were killed when security forces raided an apartment they were using. The ministry said the suspects were members of the Hashim group, which emerged in 2016 and has claimed several attacks on security forces. Kenya's transport minister has criticized striking workers at the country's main international airport in Nairobi. Flights were grounded on Wednesday as a result of a protest by Kenyan Aviation Workers Union over a labor dispute. 3 international and local airports in the country were affected, causing a major crisis at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Thousands of travelers were stranded after the flights were delayed or rescheduled.
Most of us are not notified on the delays and any inconveniences that are coming up. And we also have inconveniences because if we are connecting on the other side, we are deemed to miss the flights.
Following the fallout, officials have appointed a team to mediate and help resolve the dispute. The strike also drew sharp criticism from Kenya Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia. Operations are said to have returned to normal.
Here, with a security installation, especially when you have no basis for complaints. When you have a job, nobody has failed to pay your salary. Nobody has given you a threat that your job you'll be at risk, and yet you go on a strike.
Almost a year after the formal launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the plan is now inching toward the 22-country threshold needed for implementation. The African Union envisioned the free trade zone spanning the entire continent as a means of improving the movement of goods, services and people. Among AU's 55 members, it aims to increase employment prospects, living standards and opportunities for the people, and to make Africa more globally competitive by integrating economies and reducing trade barriers such as tariffs. Officials from 44 countries have signed the framework establishing the Trade Pact. Several others have since signed. 19 countries have ratified the agreement, leaving it just 3 short of the minimum before the agreement takes effect, but Nigeria is yet to sign the pact. The diplomatic row between Uganda and Rwanda has taken a different turn. The border between the two nations is almost at a standstill, but the customs and immigration offices on the Ugandan side are officially open. The Rwanda government says the border is open, but reports say activities are still being halted as trucks and trailers carrying goods from Uganda are not given permission to cross. For a week, trucks and people have been stuck at border posts between Rwanda and Uganda, crippling trade and causing a diplomatic standoff. Rwanda has accused Uganda of supporting rebel groups opposed to President Paul Kagame and his government. Uganda Foreign Minister Sam Kutesa described the accusations as false. Rwandan citizens have been advised by the leaders not to visit Uganda because of allegations they may face harassment, torture and deportation. This latest standoff follows a spate of accusations over treatment of traders and nationals on either side, as well as spying allegations. The uncertainties causing tension among local communities, and some Ugandans are apprehensive about traveling to Rwanda. New president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, and his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, have agreed to form a power-sharing government. Tshisekedi has been unable to push through his choice for prime minister since winning elections in December because former President Kabila's FCC coalition party controls the parliament. After 3 days of talks, both sides have agreed on a deal they say will strengthen the climate of peace and stability of the country and facilitate the rapid establishment of a government. There is no official confirmation as to which side will nominate a prime minister, but it is expected that the FCC will have a say and will get key ministries. When we return, U.S. senators assail Saudi crown prince, and later in sports, we'll tell you who would be hosting Rugby Africa Silver Cup this year. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to stories from around the world. Pakistan has intensified its crackdown against Islamic militants. In a move on Thursday, Interior Ministry announced provincial governments have taken control of 182 seminaries known as madaris. The government has also detained more than 100 persons as part of its push against banned groups. The ministry says this is part of a long-planned drive, not a response to India's anger over what New Delhi calls Islamabad's failure to rein in militant groups operating on Pakistan's soil. Pakistan is facing pressure from global powers to act against groups carrying out attacks in India, including Jaish-e-Mohammed, which claimed responsibility for a February attack that killed at least 40 Indian paramilitary police. Afghan capital Kabul was hit by multiple explosions on Thursday, with some confirmed to have been caused by rockets that landed near a large gathering of members of the Shiite Muslim Hazara minority. Officials say at least 2 persons were wounded. No group has claimed responsibility. Over the years, Hazaras has been attacked by Sunni Muslim militant groups like the Taliban, Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Hundreds of residents, including leaders of the Hazara community and some government officials, were at the gathering where they were commemorating the anniversary of the leader's death. A local television news crew covering the event live said at least 10 explosions were heard and the people scattered in all directions after the blast. UK Finance Minister Philip Hammond says Britain will probably have to delay its departure from the European Union if MPs reject the government's proposed divorce deal in the votes next week. If Prime Minister Theresa May fails to get her divorce treaty approved by Parliament, MPs will have to decide whether to delay Brexit or thrust the world's 5th largest economy into chaos by leaving without a deal. Britain is due to leave the EU in 22 days. A rejection of the deal by MPs would put in doubt how, when, and possibly even if Britain's biggest foreign and trade policy shift in almost 50 years would take place. Hammond warned Eurosceptic colleagues if they fail to back the government deal, they face the risk of a closer economic relationship with the EU. Venezuela's opposition leader Guaido has urged Europe to tighten financial sanctions against Nicolas Maduro's government that has just expelled Germany's ambassador. This is the latest flashpoint in a global showdown over Venezuela, with Western nations largely recognizing Guaido as the legitimate head of state. Russia and China still support socialist Maduro and have been urging non-interference. Guaido is quoted as telling the German magazine Der Spiegel that Maduro's action in expelling the German ambassador represents a threat against Germany. Maduro has declared German ambassador Daniel Kreno persona non gratis after he and other diplomats had welcomed home Guaido at Caracas airport earlier this week. President Trump's nominee to be ambassador to Saudi Arabia, retired General John Abi Zayed, has to defend the U.S.-Saudi relationship on Wednesday as U.S. lawmakers accused the kingdom of a litany of misdeeds. They even criticized Saudi Arabia's crown prince Mohammed bin Salman as going full gangster. Senators Abi Zayed's confirmation hearings, including Trump's fellow Republicans as well as Democrats, condemned the kingdom's conduct in Yemen's civil war, heavy-handed diplomacy and right abuses. Among those were the torturing of women's activists and U.S. citizens and the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Abi Zayed called for accountability for Khashoggi's murder and support for human rights, but he repeatedly stressed the strategic importance of Washington-Riyadh ties. The U.S. has not had an ambassador to Saudi Arabia since Trump became president in January 2017. Up next in sport, how much do you know about Rugby Africa? Stay with us for details.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right? Keep walking down, keep walking to the left, yes?
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Rugby Africa has confirmed that Nigeria will host this year's Africa Silver Cup Pool A tournament in Lagos. Nigeria will play host to Madagascar, Botswana and Ghana in June. Nigeria Rugby Football Federation says this tournament will serve as a huge opportunity to increase rugby awareness in the country. Ivory Coast will host Senegal, Mauritius and Rwanda in Pool B also in June. Winners of Pool A and Pool B will meet in a final match to determine the Silver Cup champion. Madagascar's Football Federation has extended the contract of national team coach Nicolas Dupuy until the end of this year's Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. Dupuy was rewarded for coaching Madagascar to the country's historic first ever Nations Cup finals. He has also guided the team to 3 successful outings in their Nations Cup qualifying campaign so far. Good news for Madagascar. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.